All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Gorewski, and I'll be your host for today. We are down to the final week of February. February has just absolutely flown by. And I think it's probably because we have jam-packed the month with over 40 live connections celebrating incredible women in science, exploration, adventure, and conservation from all over the world. So there is still a full week of events. And as we usually do, we've kind of jammed this week. I think we have 10 or so live events coming your way. So do head to exploringbytheseat.com, find those live events, and you can register and grab spots for your classrooms. Of course, you can always catch past events on our YouTube channel as well. All right. So we have a great event coming your way today. We're going to talk a little bit about the shoebills, an incredible bird that you can find in Africa. We have Maggie Hirschauer hanging out with us today. She is the shoebill program manager at Bangweulu Wetlands in Zambia. I hope I said that right. Maggie can correct me, which I'm sure she might have to. But their mission to help these birds who are under threat from various things like habitat loss and fire and things like that is to help with captive rearing and educational outreach. So they are able to raise the chicks in captivity. I'm not going to tell you how because it is really cool, and I know that we're going to get into it. So what I'm going to do is head to Maggie. Last time Maggie and I connected, she was in Zambia, but this time she's a little closer here in North America. So let's grab her into the call. Hey, Maggie, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Happy to be here, Joe. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, it's so good to have you. We've got a great group of classrooms. We've got classrooms in Canada, classrooms in the US. I have several backstage. So don't be shy at any stage to say hey in the chat. And then we'll have time for questions because shoebills are so cool. And I have no doubt that there's going to be a bunch of questions for you, Maggie.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, we'll let you take over for a little bit and then we'll get into that Q&A action.
Fantastic. Let's see. I'm sharing my screen now.
Yeah, I see it starting to load. So far, so good.
Let me... I want to escape. Let me go from the beginning. Try again.
Always good from the beginning.
Yeah.
All right, here it comes.
All right. So, thank you once again.
I think we lost it. It came up and then you might have hit stop screen share again.
Okay, let's see. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. It's that's why we test early, and sometimes technology, even after a test, takes a try or two. So
there we go.
Perfect. And then if you want to hit hi, yeah, we're ready. It's there. Looks good.
Fantastic. Yeah. So my name's Maggie. I have been working with shoebills for several years now. But I've spent the majority of my adult life working with animals, specifically wildlife, trying to conserve them. So I've learned a lot of what I know about birds by working with endangered vultures in South Africa. I've worked in many different countries in Africa with primates, with chimpanzees, and blue monkeys. So if you guys have any questions about African birds or, my path to working with shoebills, I'd be happy to answer. But here today, I want to talk about the Bangweulu Wetlands. It's an incredible area, one of the most important wetlands in all of Africa. As you can see, it's this mosaic. There's a lot of different kinds of vegetation, lots of different water bodies flowing into one area. Very vast, difficult to work in, difficult to travel. But the reason why we're here is because of this really important bird, the shoebill. And the reason why we're working with the shoebill is because there's not many of them left. There's less than 8,000 of them estimated in the world, and that number is declining. So you can see here we have a map of the outline of several countries in Africa. The black spots are where shoebills are found, so they're only found in Central Eastern Africa. And then Bangweulu is the red dot in the bottom. So it's as far south as the bird is found. It's a very critical population for the species globally. Again, only found in Central Eastern Africa. To try to better understand the bird population that we have in Bangweulu in Zambia, here's an outline of the park in which I work, the Bangweulu Wetlands in red. We flew an aerial survey this last year, and the area in which we flew is in white. It took us 5 days. It was a lot of flying. Here were our pilots. And here's what we would see if we're flying in the air looking for a shoebill. I don't know if you guys can see, it's a little grainy, but there's a tiny blue animal kind of upright in the middle of that light green patch there. And that's a shoebill. So that's what we're looking for. And to accomplish this, we're flying over 1,000 square miles. It's a vast area. And we fly it at these kind of wide strips looking for shoebills. And then once we identify the habitat, we break that down and we fly it at a smaller width. So we had 5 transects of habitat where we were looking for shoebills, and we only found 40 birds. So we have this massive area that we're trying to manage. We're looking for these birds literally like a needle in a haystack, and we only found 40. So there really are not many of them left in the world. And even within the place that we work, we counted 40 last year. One of the main ways that we work with the community to protect this species and try to understand them better is we have a nest protection program. So what we do here is there are fishermen that work in the wetlands and try to get fish to sell, but also just to feed their families. And because it's so difficult traveling and moving in the wetlands, we rely on the fishermen to find the nests for us. So when fishermen find the nests, they phone us, they call us, and we go out to the wetland where they are. We meet with them, they show us the nest. And then if it is a shoebill nest, like you can see here in the bottom, we give them uniforms, we give them salaries, and they stay in the area and they guard that nest 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they're just trying to alert us to what the threats are. How old is the chick? How many chicks are on the nest? You know, some very basic information, but that would otherwise be very difficult to get without the help of these fishermen scattered throughout the wetlands. And so this program has been going for 3 years now. And there's a lot of numbers here on the screen, but really what I'm trying to show is that in 2024, last year, we had 23 nests that were identified by fishermen. And we're trying to measure, you know, we want more fledglings. We want them to breed. We want them to be successful and raise babies. And so the goal of this program is to guard the nests, understand the threats, and then ultimately have them raise babies to be successful and fly free. Unfortunately, one of the biggest threats for the birds in our area is fire. And this year we had 2 birds come into the facility that were burned. This is an example of one of our birds named Phoenix, who is now with us at the rehabilitation facility. But this is the fire, you know, even though there's water, you can see water here, there's a lot of biomass, a lot of vegetation above the water that can burn. So the fire comes through really hot, really fast, and the chicks can't fly when they're really young. So this is the end result. So we're trying to work to reduce fires in the area as well. We do ring the chicks. The bird on the left might look big, but it's actually a chick. It's just about ready to fly. So we go onto the nest, we put these leg bands, these colored leg bands on their legs, and we're able to then, if we see this bird later in the field flying and we can read the number, then we can know where the bird came from, which nest he came from. So I'm just going to share some fun photos and videos here with you. We do have cameras that we place at the nests, and we've been learning a lot about the birds' biology and their behavior. Here you can see the adult bird has brought one of the chicks a massive snake. Typically, you know, you read in the literature that they eat catfish and lungfish, but we're learning that they actually feed their chicks a lot of snakes. Here's, we have some videos I'll let you watch. This is a parent on the nest. Part of why shoebills are so famous is because of this, I call it bill clapping. Some people say it sounds like a machine gun. Here's 2 adults who are going to be greeting each other. Let's see if I can get this to start. So bill clapping again and then bowing as a greeting. You can see the egg in the nest. Both parents care for the egg and the chick, so they're just taking turns now. Now the other parent is going to leave. And this is a very unusual behavior for some bird species. We call it watering. You can see it's 12 o'clock noon. It's very hot out. And the mom is bringing water to the egg, cooling the egg off. This is pretty unusual. Some ducks will also do this behavior, but it's pretty unique, and shoebills also do it. So they can lay one egg, but they also can lay two. If they lay two eggs, they lay them about 5 days apart. And what happens is that the chick that hatches first is 5 days older and bigger, and it will often kill the younger sibling. So when there's two eggs, we go in and we can harvest one of them, and we bring that egg into captivity. And the reason why we do this is to save that egg. Otherwise, the chick would die. So here's what it looks like when we're harvesting an egg. We have a portable incubator that we use. It keeps the egg warm in transit because they can't cool down. They have to be maintained at a very specific temperature. And we're using canoes. You know, there's lots of water. It's completely flooded. We bring the eggs back into our facility and raise them. We either harvest them or rescue them. So a rescued chick would be a chick that's injured, like the ones that were injured by fire, or harvest would be a chick that would be taken off of the nest if there's two. So we've had 18 birds since the start of this program. And we've had a lot of good success. You can see there's a chick here in our enclosures who's been able to catch his own fish. We have a facility where we raise them indoors when they're very, very young, because they can't be outside if it's very cold at night. So at night, we bring them inside. They sleep inside. Here was a building that we've revamped to be our captive rearing facility. And so here's just some examples of, this is the incubator machine. So this is where our eggs go. It keeps a very stable temperature, very stable humidity. And these are our brooder machines. So this is where the very young chicks go, only at night. Once they get a little bit older and they don't fit in here quite as well, we have these another facility where we keep them in these large boxes that they have access to some outdoor temperature, but they also have heating units to keep them warm. But for the most part, we try to keep them outside. So here's a more natural nest that we've created with reeds all around, and even a picture of a shoebill mom standing next to him. So they get to be outside, they hear other shoebills, and they never see humans. So the way that we raise them is actually we are fully covered so that they can't see us, and we use hand puppets, like you can see. So the bird on our right is a real bird, and then there's one of my staff members on the left kneeling down with one of our hand puppets. So we're constantly interacting with them with the hand puppet, and we never speak, so that they don't see humans, so that they don't associate people with food. Now we release them once they're able to fly, and here's an example of some of the GPS devices that we put on them. We have to know where they're going at all times. We want to be sure that once we release them, that they're successful, they're flying, and that they don't get into trouble. Here's an example of one of our birds. Her name is Hope. She was released. This was taken over a year. So the first photo on the left was just after release. The photo on the right is a year after release. You can kind of see the GPS device tucked in there on her back. And this photo also nicely shows the beak. You can see that there's some pattern to the beak. These are different for every single bird. So her bottom beak is pretty yellow. Her top beak is pretty dark. Some birds have like stripes on their beaks. And so we can start to use even photos to recite and understand. If we were to see Hope in the wild and get a photo, we could look at the pattern on her beak and know then that that's Hope, because it would match other photos that we've taken in the past. What we're doing now is what we call a soft release method. So we have the birds in our facility, we raise them in an enclosure, but outside. And then when they're starting to be able to fly and they're ready for release and they can catch and kill their own fish, you can see we have an enclosure here that's actually, this is on the river. So the river actually has vegetation, and then underneath this dense mat of grass, the water is flowing. So we've put these enclosures on the river. We've given them a hole to open up and put fish there. And so we will house the birds in these enclosures. I'll show you what that looks like. To get them at least used to the surroundings, the sounds, the papyrus, the vegetation of what it would be like on the river. And then when it comes time to release, all we do is we roll up the mesh and let the birds leave at their own time. And then they can explore from the release site, from the area. And I'll show you just finally a picture of kind of what that looks like. So you can see a yellow dot up in the corner. That's where the soft release enclosure was. So that's where this bird was housed. And then here's a map. You can see the river is kind of running through the center of the map. This is a satellite image. And you can see the bird's movements over 2 months after release. And so this is all within maybe a mile and a half of the release site. So the soft release protocol is actually allowing the birds to feel comfortable and stay in the area so that when we release them, they don't just fly off somewhere random where we can't really keep track of them. So far we've worked with 18 birds in this way, and we're releasing them, trying to track them and get a better understanding of the species. They're a very cool, unique bird. They look funny. There's nothing else like them in the world. And so what we're doing is really the first of its kind, and we're trying to learn as we go more about the species. That was pretty quick and a lot to show, but I'm happy to take some questions now if you guys have questions.
I have no doubt that we're going to have some questions, Maggie. But before we do that, while you were presenting, I made a little Kahoot quiz. So we're going to give the classrooms a chance to see how they do, to see if they're paying attention, what they learned today. So it's going to take me just a second to get this nice and full screen. And then I will share that with the classroom so they can take part. If you're tuning in via YouTube, if you are behind backstage, you can start to send your questions in. I'll bring some of the camera classrooms in as well shortly. And then we'll play this Kahoot together. So there we go. I'm going to share my screen and let's play our quiz together. Okay, this should be coming up now. And the way you join, well, there's lots of different ways you can join. One is to go to kahoot.it. So kahoot.it, then it's going to ask you for a PIN number. And have that on the screen. If you have maybe a tablet or something like a Chromebook at your desk, you could join that way. If not, teacher could put this up at the front of the classroom. You could shout out your answers to him or her. If you're at home, I know we have homeschool students who join. You can use the QR code, scan it with a phone or a tablet. Or if you can't get in with technology, don't worry about it. Play along anyways and see how you do. So 4 questions, some multiple choice, some true and false. The quicker you put in the right answer, the more points you're going to get. After we play our Kahoot together, we'll take some questions from the YouTube chat, and then we'll visit some of our groups backstage. I can see Miss Salem's group back there, Mrs. Painter's, Freetown Elementary is back there with us. So we will join some of those groups shortly. And then don't be shy to use the chat sidebar as well and send us in some of your questions. All right. Maybe while we wait a minute or two to see if a couple more groups come and join us, I might just ask you a quick question, Maggie.
Yeah.
And, you know, Africa is a huge country. It is full of amazing biodiversity. What do you think it is about the shoebills that just captured your imagination?
Yeah, well, there's nothing else like them. I mean, you can even think about crows or like sparrows or some types of birds. They might have related birds that are similar, but the shoebill, there is absolutely nothing like them. Evolutionarily, they're in their own family. So they're just strange. They're unique. I was approached by somebody, actually a donor, who wanted to start this program and was given the opportunity to jumpstart this program. And it just sounded like an incredible opportunity to do something for a species that really is struggling.
Yeah.
So I didn't know much about shoebills before I started working with them. Not many people know much about shoebills. There's very little known about them because they're so difficult to access. And just, yeah, it's been an awesome opportunity to build our knowledge.
All right. Well, let's play some Kahoot and see what kind of knowledge we built with our students today. 4 questions coming your way. Remember, the quicker you get the right answer in, the more points towards the podium. So first one is multiple choice. A little warm up. Where does Maggie work with the shoebills? Do you remember where it was? Is it South Africa, Zambia, Kenya, or Uganda? You have 4 African countries here to choose from. Is it South Africa, Zambia, Kenya, or Uganda? Got 4 more seconds to lock in that answer. All right, good job, crew. Most went with Zambia. Very, very cool. Let's take a look at the leaderboard, the scoreboard. The champion dragon is holding down that top spot. We've got another multiple choice coming your way about how many shoebills are left in the wild. Is it 500, 3,000, 8,000, or 11,000? About how many shoebills are left in the wild? 500, 3,000, 8,000, or 11,000? Oh, good job, crew. Even better on that one. And that, I guess, to some students, that may seem like a lot, but this is a massive area they're spread across in Central Africa. And yeah, what would you say? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Maggie.
No, and I was just going to say that's an estimate, and it's very outdated. That's over a decade old, and habitat loss is a huge issue, and like wetlands are one of the fastest declining habitats. So at this point, I think we would be very, very lucky if we had anywhere near 8,000 birds left. There's probably a lot fewer. All
right. Let's look at our scoreboard. Champion dragon holding on tight, but it's close. True or false coming your way. Fire. Oh man, that's bad language. We're typing so fast. Fire doesn't happen in wetlands, so it's not a concern for shoebills. Is that true or is that false? That fire just not happening in the wetlands, so it's not a concern for the shoebills. Got about 9 seconds to lock in that answer. Oh, you guys beat the clock. Good job. Absolutely true. There may be water underneath, but there is lots of vegetation over top. And Phoenix, that's such a great name for, a bird who kind of rose from the ashes.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, champion dragon, holding on. We got one more question, but it's a 2-point difference. True or false? Snakes are an important part of a shoebill's diet. Is that true, or is that false? You probably see the picture here. That is not a snake in that picture. I think that's a lungfish. Yeah. But are snakes an important part of a shoebill's diet? True or false? Whew, good job.
Well done, guys.
Yeah, absolutely true. And I think that's what's awesome is we have ideas, then we go out, we make observations, and we find out, are those ideas right or wrong? Are things happening we didn't expect? And I think that's a cool thing to find out how important snakes are in the shoebill diet. So 3rd place, we've got the wise dragon. In 2nd place, the champion dragon falling to 2nd place. That means we have a new leader. The rational finch holding down that top spot. Very, very cool. All right. Well, let me come back from that screen share. Let's turn that music off. Huge shout out to all our classrooms for playing along with us. Always fun to have a little Kahoot. But let's get into the Q&A action because that's definitely one of the best parts. So we have a few groups with us backstage. I can see Miss Salem's crew is there with us. But it looks like your mic is disconnected. So Miss Salem's crew, if you are there, if you want to send some questions into the private chat, we'll see if we can work those in that way. So if you use the private chat, looks like a speech bubble, we'll get those questions. But let's head to Freetown Elementary. They're joining us via audio today. How are we doing today, Freetown? No, I think they gotta, if you're there, Freetown, you can get to your mic. Can you unmute for us and we'll grab a couple questions? Okay, I don't see Freetown unmuting for us, but Freetown, feel free to just send me a message in the chat if you have a couple questions and go ahead and unmute for us as well. I can keep an eye out for that. Miss Painter's, oh, there we go. Miss Freetown, I think I saw you unmute.
Hi. Yeah. We don't have any questions right now, but we might in a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You chat if you have some questions.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, let's go to that chat. So Miss Painter's geography class is hanging out with us, and they're wondering, is poaching an issue with the shoebill?
Yeah, poaching is an issue. In the area where we are, we have seen it's not poaching as if for food, but because they're so unique and strange looking and rare, there is actually a black market for them. So there is an illegal trade, and this is for live birds. So we have had instances where people have tried to take the chicks off of the nest and smuggle them out of the wetland to try to find a buyer to sell them, either through the Congo or in some fashion to take them out. And yeah, they're supposed to be one of the more expensive birds on the black market. So, there is a big incentive for people in the swamp to try to take them. So it's something that we've been working with law enforcement a lot and with our government partners, to really crack down on the trade.
Yeah. Yeah. The second part to that question was about deforestation. So I imagine that's an issue,
Yeah.
draining wetlands.
Yeah, it can be in some areas of the species range, but not where we are in southern Zambia. Yeah, other areas, wetlands can be drained for agriculture. As the human population increases, as more and more people start to be in the area, they need more food, and so then they just try to plant things, and for that reason, they can let the water drain and off and then use it for either cows or agriculture. And that is a big issue in other parts of the species range, but not in Zambia.
Yeah. Okay. Another question here from YouTube. So Caesar is joining us from Nicaragua, and Caesar is a student who joins us quite regularly, and he is wondering about the biggest shoebill. Like, how big can they get?
Yeah. Well, so males are larger than females. I know it in kilograms. I don't know it in pounds, but the males can be 6.5 kilos. The females are 4.5 kilograms. So the males are substantially larger than the females. And they can stand, up to my neck. They are very, very tall. 8-foot wingspan, 2.5-meter wingspan. So, in terms of, the largest bird that we've had is 6.5 kilos as a chick. As like an 8-month-old, this bird is standing up to my chin, weighing 6.5 kilos.
That's pretty impressive.
Mm.
Very cool. Okay. Miss Salem's crew, they're wondering about shoebills eat snakes. Do they eat venomous snakes, poisonous snakes? Is that dangerous?
Yeah, I think that they certainly could. What I know that they have eaten are snakes that are found in the wetlands, and I don't know any of those to be venomous. There definitely are pythons in the wetland as well. I've never experienced them to eat pythons. I've seen them eat more of these like water snakes. I think they certainly could. They certainly could. But the ones that are found in the wetlands aren't venomous.
All right. Okay, let's grab another question here from YouTube. Okay, so this one is about lungfish. They've never heard of lungfish before. So can you tell us a little bit about lungfish?
Yeah, we actually don't have lungfish in Bangweulu in Zambia where I work, but the similarities between catfish and lungfish, and what the birds are after, like why they've evolved to eat these species, is because the catfish, I mentioned this like dense mat of grass on the river that the birds they have very long toes, and so they perch on this floating grass mat, and they find holes in this mat of grass where the fish come up and gulp for air. So lungfish and catfish, they live in waters that have very little amounts of oxygen, so they have to come up to the surface to gulp air. And the birds sit and wait for these birds to come and gulp air. And they use their sight, but they also use their hearing. They hear that gulp, and then they look towards where the fish is, and then they grab the fish as it's coming up in these little holes in the mats of grass. So some similarities between the two fish, but they're these long, slippery, they almost kind of look like snakes. They're quite powerful. And the birds use these really sharp hooks to grab the slippery, powerful prey. And then the sides of their beak are like knives. They're very sharp. So they grab the slippery prey with the hook, and then they maneuver it around in their beak and crush the heads of the fish with the sharp edges, essentially.
All right. So, Mrs. Painter's geography class are curious about how old you were when you started working with the Shoebills.
Yeah, I was in my early 30s. I'm 36 now, and I've been there for going on 4 years. Yeah.
Okay.
I started working with birds when I was, 16, 17, when I was very young, and have just been fascinated with birds since.
Awesome. So that's our group in Virginia, Miss Painter's crew. Okay, let's see here. So Freetown, they're joining us in Massachusetts. And they have another question here about, so again, kind of thinking about the size of a shoebill, but maybe more like how big are they when they start? And then how long does it take for them to get fully grown?
Yeah, they grow very fast. When they're young as eggs, I mean, they can fit in the palms of my hands. It's like if you guys know a goose egg, it's comparable. And when they hatch, they're very small. They can fit in my hands. And their beak is actually kind of looks more like a typical bird beak. And then within the course of 1 month, that beak is growing into this massive, what we think of more of like a clog or a shoe.
Yeah.
So yeah, within the first 2 months, by the time they're 4 months old, they are skeletally fully developed. So they look like a fully grown shoebill. They're very tall. And it's only after the course of them practicing flying that they build muscle mass and put on a little bit more weight. But in terms of their skeleton, they're fully grown at 4 months.
Yeah. So I like this question because we've had conservationists join us in the past, and they've worked with really elusive animals like the jaguar and such. And sometimes they've spent over a decade working with something they've only seen once or twice in the wild. So how often do you get to see the shoebill in the wild?
Yeah, well, my work is based pretty much at the facility. So when I am lucky enough to go into the field, if I go to shoebill habitat, we are seeing them pretty often. And part of what we offer at Bangweulu is a tourist experience. So if you guys want to see shoebills, it is one of the best places in the world to see them. And part of my work has been trying to find out where is the bird's habitat so that we can find them quickly. You know, they're not spread across the wetland evenly. They really are focused on these pockets of habitat where they can find catfish and where they can find snakes. They're very specialized in terms of their habitat and in terms of their food. So we've really identified these areas where they're found, where they forage. And if you go to these areas, you find them pretty much every time.
All right. Awesome. Okay. This is a great question. I love when classrooms ask this. How, Ms. Painter's crew, for instance, is in Virginia. So how can they support shoebills? What can people do from far away to have an impact?
Yeah, well, I mentioned we do have a tourist experience. I mean, if you are fortunate enough to be able to travel, I think you can travel to an area where you can see the bird and contribute to parks that are trying to contribute to their conservation. All of the work that we do is donation based. I work through an organization called African Parks. So if you guys want to give a contribution to the shoebill program, you can donate. I would ask maybe we can share my email address and you can reach out to me directly. I think just in general, being aware of your impact and keeping even like it's not shoebills specifically, because I think to contribute to shoebills, if you're not going to donate, you have to pretty much come to their habitat to volunteer or help there. But just in all of the conservation work that I've done, just being aware of your surroundings, being aware of your impact and how you're living your life and trying to make an impact where you are. There's a lot of good that you can do even in your community with the birds that are around you.
Yeah. And to any classrooms, we've been hosting these live events this is our 10th year now. And we've seen really cool stories of classrooms who did things like collecting bottles, bake sales, popcorn sales and things like that to raise a little bit of money to help different groups, like for rhinos and sloths and things like that. So, that's a possibility, is to find a way to do something in your classroom to raise a little bit, to make a contribution.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got some ecology. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Maggie.
No, I just said thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So a few ecology questions here. About how long will a shoebill live for?
Several decades, 35 to 50 years. They reproduce very slowly. They only have one breeding season in a year. So if you think about a mom and a dad having one nest that only produces one chick, it takes 2 years for them to replace themselves. So that's pretty standard for birds or species that have a very slow reproductive rate to be very long-lived. So yeah, you're thinking 35 to 50 years.
Okay. I've got a question from a fourth grade class in Ontario, and they're wondering about predators. So we know they're predators, but do they have predators?
Yeah, they do, especially the chicks. There are fish eagles and martial eagles that could take a young chick as a bite-sized snack. We also have pythons and crocodiles in the wetland that can take a young chick. And we had cameras on some of our nests in 2013 that actually captured a chick being dragged off of its nest. We didn't catch the predator, but it could have been either a monitor lizard or possibly a crocodile. And then there's also this creature called a water mongoose. And actually the species name in the local language, which is Bemba, is called Ipumambao. So Ipumambao is the name of the shoebill in the local language. But mbao is the water mongoose, and the name Ipumambao means the one that fights with the water mongoose. So the name for the shoebill in the local language actually means the bird that fights with the water mongoose. So clearly the water mongoose is a predator that the bird would interact with often to have been given such a name.
All right. So I see Freetown Elementary put a question in the chat, but if you want to unmute your mic, it's always fun to hear some voices. So I'll keep an eye out for it to unmute. And if you want to ask that question, I think it's a good one. So let me bring you in now.
Hi, we have a student who wanted to ask that question.
Excellent.
You can come and ask it. What's your question?
How smart are the shoebill birds?
Great question. So the birds, they are aggressive to one another. So they're quite antisocial, especially when they're chicks. And I think because they don't interact with many birds very often, I find that they actually can adapt and associate to people or to the puppet really quickly. So I think that's some kind of intelligence. I mean, they're pretty understanding, they'll adapt to the puppet very quickly. We will have chicks that we bring into the facility, and within one day they're feeding from the puppet. They're interacting with the puppet as if it is their parent. In terms of like intelligence of problem solving or tool use, I don't really have any evidence of anything like that, but I've found them to be really, really a lot of fun to work with, especially as the puppet interacting with them.
All right. Well, this is a good segue into the next question from our group in Ontario. How did you make those puppets?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually worked with a puppeteer, a professional puppet maker based in New York. His name is Bill Diamond, and he worked with Jim Henson. I don't know if you guys know like Big Bird or the Muppets, but he has worked with Jim Henson, who built the Muppets. And I called Bill and told him about our program, and he was super excited. He was, excited to think about providing puppets for use in the real world. And so he just showed him some photos, and he crafted the thing. They're made out of foam and fleece. He changed the color a little bit, and then that was it. So a professional made them. I didn't have to worry about it. Yeah,
very cool. Okay, so I'm going to work in 2 more questions before we say goodbye today, Maggie.
Okay.
Freetown, if you want to ask yours again, I'll keep an eye out for your microphone. And then, they're nice and fast. Let me grab them. Okay, we're ready for you.
Are they strong or not?
Are they strong? They are very strong with their fish. They will take fish that weigh a quarter of their body weight. They'll pick the fish up with their beak, and these fish are strong and they're flopping around, and they are able to take these fish, crush them, kill them very quickly, and swallow them whole. Now, in flying, I mean, they're very strong flyers. They can actually thermal, which is where you'll see vultures do this. They go up like in a column and they go very, very, very high. So they're strong flyers. They're able to kill really strong, powerful fish. I would not want to mess. Their beak and that hook is their main weapon. Very strong. Yeah.
All right. Great question. Mrs. Painter's crew has one more for us. We're curious about the speed. Obviously, they have to be quick to grab a fish. I'm sure they're pretty good ambush predators, but flight-wise, maybe how fast they can move through the wetland. Are they fast? Can be considered fast?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never clocked them. That's something that we actually could do. We have the capability to do that with the GPS units that are on their backs right now, but we would have to actually log one of their locations while they're in flight to get a sense of how fast they're moving. That's a great question. Yeah, again, things that we don't know. Things we don't know about the shoebill.
Yeah, well, that's a good lesson for the classrooms. Is we live in this huge world. Sometimes people say there's nothing left to explore, discover, but that couldn't be further from the truth. We still have so many questions about our natural world. So there's still lots of cool careers in biology, ocean exploration, technology. The list goes on and on and on. And just one more, just to touch on those satellite tags. Obviously, they're pretty light. Have you noticed if the birds react to them at all?
Not at all. Not at all. I've put satellite tags on a couple different species. Mm-hmm. Some species react differently, but the shoebills don't seem to even notice, to be honest. And they're big, but they're very light. Typically, we want to put devices on birds that are 3% or less of their body weight, and these weigh around 1% of their body weight. So they don't even pay attention.
All right. Well, let's start off with a shout out to our classrooms. Thank you so much to our backstage groups for those great questions. Thank you to those tuning in via YouTube, and a shout out to everybody for playing some Kahoot with us. It's always fun to play some Kahoot. And Maggie, thank you so much. It's always great to share stories, conservation stories, and the shoebill is such an important story, and it's such an innovative conservation story using puppets, and you've been having some great success. So that's hopefully a model for other places to use as well in Central Africa.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, and to everybody out there, keep asking questions, keep exploring, make your dreams come true. Just keep fighting. Okay.
All right. We hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and we are going to sign off for now. Thanks, everyone.